Raider Nation, what is going on, everybody? It's your boy Sanjit. The Las Vegas Raiders have officially extended Derek Carr to a 3-year contract worth $141.3 million. Very, very interesting. We talked about this for a number of weeks now that the Raiders are going to somehow have to pay Derek Carr on top of basically everything else, and they've gotten it done. And I'm actually very excited for this contract because Derek Carr technically took a very team-friendly contract. I know some people will say, how is $40 million team-friendly? But you have to keep in mind it's an extension. So what that means is on an average value basis, his contract's really worth roughly $35 million. He's basically getting $140 million for the next 4 years, which comes out to $35 million. So when you look at it from that perspective, that's a pretty team-friendly contract. Now, I'm going to be excited to really see the cap hits, right? Because the cap hits is what's going to matter the most. If Derek Carr takes a cap hit, he raises his cap hit this year from 19 million to something like 25 or 26. I think that's going to benefit the Raiders, especially in the long run, especially when next season comes around and Hunter Renfrow and Josh Jacobs and all these other players are up for contracts. One of the things I'm actually more excited about is the fact that the Las Vegas Raiders are now locking up some of their best players. Max Crosby got his contract. Derek Carr obviously just got signed. Chandler Jones got brought in and he got paid a decent amount of money. And then you go out and you get a wide receiver like Davante Adams and you pay him and make him the highest paid player. It's clear the Las Vegas Raiders are going out and they're trying to get some of the best players that are out there. Now, here's the thing. Some people were talking about Josh McDaniels and his commitment to Derek Carr. Some people talk about how he was kind of non-committal to Derek Carr. And he's basically committed at this point to DC. And it's going to be exciting to see how the Raiders kind of continue to build this roster, how they kind of continue to build the team. Now, it's very clear, in my opinion, that the Raiders want to win, and they want to win now. And obviously, that would be the proper approach, especially if you look at the current roster. We have the current players, the current set of people on this roster. And then you look at the fact that we have a cheap team, and Derek Carr was only making $19 million this past season. With all that being said, then you look at guys like Darren Waller, guys like Hunter Renfrow, guys like Max Crosby, who are all on rookie contracts, right? Even a guy like Nate Hobbs has been really good on a rookie contract. And we know that these guys are all one day going to get paid. Now, the biggest question at this point will be, how do Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler replace some of the guys we won't be able to bring back? Like, let's be honest. Hunter Renfrow, we may be able to re-sign him, right? We may be able to give him $10 or $12 million. Then you look at Darren Waller, and we may be able to give him an extension. We may be able to say, Darren Waller, here is an extension, and here's $15 million per year. But we can't bring back every single person. Like, it's just not possible. When you have a guy like Davante Adams making $28.5 million, you have Derek Carr making roughly $35 to $40 million. Even a guy like Davante Adams and Max Crosby's contracts, you have to consider those type of contracts. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the Raiders actually move forward. Now, I see a lot of your guys' comments. A big shout out to First Catch, who left a $2.99 super sticker. Big shout out to you. I see a ton of your guys' comments. If you guys can hit that thumbs up button, I would really, really, really appreciate it. It really helps this video. I want to see what some of you guys think, man. Again, if you guys have questions, concerns, comments, super chat is the way to go. Bam Sutler says, I hope they spread this money out. And that's going to be the biggest part of it, right? Is to really look at those cap hits and kind of see what the Raiders do in that aspect. Average is 35. That's pretty good from Jeffrey Willis. Absolutely. Keys said, Carr is so good and will shock all the doubters. And that's the thing, right? Is a lot of people are hesitant with Derek Carr because he hasn't proven it. But you can also argue to the fact that his teams haven't been that good, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And then at the same time, you can argue that quarterbacks have success based off the defense, right? Because it's not even just the offense. Like last year, our offense wasn't that good, but we still won. We still made it to the playoffs because the defense stepped up. So this year, it's going to be very crucial for the defense to step up. Now, obviously, we're so much better on the offense side of the ball, too. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the Raiders end up doing this season. Big shout out to all of you guys. NorCal Raider Jesse, big shout out to you for being a member of this channel. If you guys are not members, man, consider being a member. I see a cool little symbol next to your name. So it's super easy to basically read out your comments. They come up on the screen. Raid the tape. Big shout out to you, man. I hope you're doing well. We got to get together and get live. Patrick Hill said that Waller and Renfro are next. That's another interesting thing. You mentioned Darren Waller, and a lot of people talked about the fact that Darren Waller was in the building, and the fact that Darren Waller showed up, and that there's no contract issues now because Darren Waller showed up. Darren Waller showing up doesn't mean that Darren Waller doesn't want to get extended, right? It doesn't mean Darren Waller doesn't want another contract. I don't know how people correlate the two things, but I think Darren Waller needs to be taken care of soon. I think Darren Waller, I don't think he's the type of person to say, I'm not going to stick around with this team, right? I'm not going to hold out. That's not the type of person Darren Waller is. But Darren Waller deserves a contract extension. I think most of us in Raider Nation can agree that Darren Waller is due a raise, right? Like Noah Fant just got franchise tagged, or I'm sorry, his 5th-year option just got picked up, and he's going to get paid more than Darren Waller this year, which is crazy to think, right? So it's gonna be very interesting. But I do think that Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller also have to get locked up. Like, you take care of Derek Carr and you get him locked in. There's no excuse now at this point to get all these other players locked in. Like, Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller know who their quarterback is going to be for the next 3 to 4 years. So at that point, we got to see if we can get all these other guys locked in. Another thing that kind of note, Tom Brady for the longest time, he was making top tier dollar, like on an average value basis, but Tom Brady would extend his cap hit out into voidable years. So I expect something like that with Derek Carr. Like, I truly expect that maybe this year we keep him at 19 million in terms of cap hit. And over the next 3 seasons, I could see his cap hit being like 25 or $30 million. And then maybe we have 2 or 3 void years after that, right? I think the Raiders are going to put something like that into the contract. And I'm excited to really see exactly how they do this contract, because it's going to be very interesting. All right, let's just be honest. Very, very interesting. The Nation's Own has become a member. Big shout out to you. And check out the members' content if you haven't, man. There's definitely some interesting stuff there, as did Jose FK29364. Big shout out to you as well. I will say this. Becoming members is always the best way to support the channel, because it always shows me how much revenue I can expect, how much of my effort. Keep in mind, a lot of these videos get demonetized. How much of those videos will end up being worth, basically, right? If I know that there's $100 worth of memberships coming in every month, then I know that, this is the value that I'm providing to you guys. So big shout out to you, man. I really appreciate it. Eric G said, LFG, great work. Always, Sanjit. Love your videos and updates. Big shout out to you, man. I really appreciate that. It's gonna be a super fun season this year. Like, let's just be honest, man. I'm really excited because we have Devontae Adams now. We have Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow, and we have Chandler Jones and Max Crosby. And I think those 5 or 6 guys will really change this entire team. Like, I truly believe that to be great, you can have a great offense and a great pass rush, and the Raiders have that at this point. So I'm really excited to see how that all kind of comes together. But I really appreciate the super chat, man. For reals, it really does mean a lot. Ty the Raider said no trade clause as well. 2 Carr is going nowhere. Pharaoh NFL says that as well, which is very interesting. I obviously did not see that because I started this video, but the no trade clause is talking about it is very interesting because it takes away from from a team's ability to trade a player. Now, obviously, Deshaun Watson kind of proved why you want that no trade clause, right? Because the Texans could have probably gotten more for Deshaun Watson, and Watson would have declined it everywhere except the Cleveland Browns. And obviously they probably didn't get as much, which now means that the Raiders are not going to trade Derek Carr. Like, Derek Carr told us that if he's not with the Raiders, he's going to retire. That literally may be the case, man. Derek Carr literally may retire if he isn't with the Las Vegas Raiders. So that's going to be very interesting, man. Very, very interesting that he put that in there. But that's actually super smart of Derek Carr. Super excited for him, man. I really am. I think this regime really is going to take Derek Carr's game to the next level. Like, I truly believe that between the players that we've already brought in, between the fact that we've now paid some of the top players as well that, absolutely deserve contracts. The Raiders are doing it the correct way. They're building this roster the correct way. This is how you want to go forward, right? You don't want to not have a quarterback locked in, because then to the rest of the team, they're not really sure. Like, are we going to go and draft the rookie? Are we going to go do, something else? Or are we going to roll forward with the quarterback that's currently on the roster? And I think at this point, guys like Darren Waller and Colton Miller and all these other guys know now who their quarterback's going to be. Even guys that could potentially come in, like potential free agents at this point, know who the quarterback's going to be. And obviously the trade clause just adds to that, because there's no way the Raiders will now be moving off from Derek Carr for at least 4 seasons, which is very interesting. We'll obviously find out a little bit more with the contract and the cap hits. Again, I think the biggest part of this entire thing is going to be the cap hits. Keep in mind now, there are now 5 quarterbacks that make $40 million or more. And I'm sorry, there's 7 quarterbacks that make $40 million or more. So Derek Carr will now be making over $40 million, or at least $40 million, according to the to his new contract. Obviously, is different than the cap hit. So the cap hits is what I'm excited to watch. Maybe Andy Raider talks. It's Salute Sanjit. Big shout out to you. Big shout out to all you guys, man. Almost over 450 of you guys here. If you guys could hit that thumbs up button, I'd really, really, really appreciate it. Bill said, "This is great, but we need to either draft or sign free agent linemen so he can shine." And that's the thing, right? Is we need to shore up the right tackle position, because the right tackle position, and we're going to talk about it. It's very interesting. One of the things that I was very hesitant with this team is the fact that we picked up Alex Leatherwood in the draft last season. And from what I heard, Alex Leatherwood, although he'll have the opportunity of right tackle, players within the building do not feel that Alex Leatherwood is going to be the starting right tackle. And I'm not saying the coaches feel that way, but there's players that don't feel Alex Leatherwood is ready. Even now, like, they don't feel like he's ready to be the right tackle, which means if Alex Leatherwood's not ready to be the right tackle this season, he will likely never be the right tackle for the Las Vegas Raiders, which makes me also believe, what do we do with that right tackle position? Because let's be honest, if Derek Carr gets pressured, he's not going to be able to perform when he's kept clean, right? In fact, I was actually just looking at a statistic yesterday. When a player's kept clean, when he's kept, no pressure, there's no blitzes, although Derek Carr does really good against blitzes, when he's not pressured, Derek Carr is, I believe, the 6th best quarterback in the league at like just pure passing, which is crazy to think, but it does make sense, right? And I think a big part of that will be, can Derek Carr be kept clean? Can we actually keep quarterbacks from getting to him? Now, obviously, here's the thing, right? If Derek Carr is kept clean, it's going to be based off that right tackle. And who is it? Is it Brandon Parker? Is it Jermaine Illuminor? Is it Jackson Barton, who a lot of people don't even talk about? But the Raiders have to figure out the right tackle position, and I think they will, right? I think Denzel Good's there too to potentially play guard if needed. So it's gonna be very, very, very interesting. We'll find out what ends up happening. Again, I think it really starts with the cap hits of Derek Carr. The cap hits are huge. So once we get that, we'll kind of make a video and talk about that. Dirty Style said, "Good move for. I'm not a Carr stan, but I like this a lot." Absolutely. It's a 3-year contract. It's gonna be interesting to see what ends up happening with the cap hits, right? I think the cap hits, because if you have 3 or 4 void years at the end of it, you're going to be locked into Derek Carr longer than you may expect, because he will likely be picked up again, right? He would likely be signed to another contract. Remember, the New England Patriots are paying Tom Brady this year, technically, right, from the cap hit perspective. Maybe you're not actually sending him cash, but they're paying him in terms of cap hit. I appreciate the super chat, Dirty Styles. We're going to really find out this year, man, what this Raiders team is made of. Devontae Adams, Derek Carr. It's going to be very interesting. Very, very, very interesting. Trevor says, "Sanjay, we're going to smack the Chiefs this year." And that's the hope, man. I really think the Raiders are going to, quote unquote, smack the Chiefs this year. The Kansas City Chiefs got way worse this year. Like, it's crazy to me how much worse they got this year. And people still think they're the best team in this division. And I say the gap, even last year, the gap was not that big between the Raiders and the Chiefs, especially coming into the season. The only reason they blew us out both times was because of the fact that we lost our head coach. We lost our best wide receiver, our best tight end, right? Even Josh Jacobs was kind of banged up. But if that wasn't the case, I think the games would have been a lot closer. And then you consider the fact that they just lost their best offensive player, their second best offensive player. They get worse at the safety position. They get worse on the defensive line. The gap is not that big. In fact, I would argue right now the Kansas City Chiefs probably the worst team in the division. Like you could make the argument that they are the worst team in the division. I know some people say it's the Denver Broncos, but the Broncos are still a good roster, right? They supported a rookie quarterback and they sucked for so long. They're able to put a good roster together. And I think at this point, Russell Wilson's it's a good get for them. It'll be very interesting. Raid the Tape says no excuses for Carr, even if it's the same line as last year. Get it done. Let's go. Absolutely right. And that's the thing is there are zero excuses for Derek Carr to struggle this year. Like zero excuses. At the end of the day, when you look at Derek Carr, you got everything that you need to have success. A top 5 tight end, a top 5 slot receiver, a top 5 receiver on the outside. Your offensive line sure may not be that good, but I think offensive line is kind of overrated, right? I truly believe that you can get 5 average guys and have a top 10 offensive line. You can have 5 guys that rank like 20th at their position, all 5 guys, and still have a top 5 offensive line. It's all about just how the coach quarterback kind of scheme things up, right? You can throw a pass quickly. You can run the ball to the outside and just have a tight end crack block, and basically it doesn't matter what from the right guard to the left tackle do if it's to the right, right? So there's a lot that the Raiders can do in terms of scheming it up, and I think this is the year that Derek Carr has to step up and prove to the world that he is the guy that some of us think he is, right? He's the guy that some of Raider Nation feels is a top 5 quarterback. This is the year to prove it. For the last 2 to 3 years, Aaron Rodgers with Devontae Adams just had superstar seasons. So we expect something similar from Derek Carr, right? It's expected that Derek Carr gets it done this year. Plus, if you guys look at it from an alternative perspective, the Raiders made the playoffs last year, and we're like 75% of the team last year than we are this year. This year, we're so much better. Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels came in, and they didn't trade our best players away. They brought in our best players. They brought in Chandler Jones and Devontae Adams. They came in and didn't trade away our best defensive end, our best receiver. They went out and paid the guys on the current roster, right? So this team is built, man. I'm very excited. 808 Raiders says get Andre Dillard from the Eagles for a 4th round pick. I think that would be a great pickup, man. The Philadelphia Eagles tackle Andre Dillard, I forget where he came from. I think he's like in his 3rd or 4th year at this point, and I don't even think he's like their full-time starter. I think they have like another tackle that they kind of rely on. I think that would be actually a really solid option. I spoke to some Eagles fans literally maybe like 2 or 3 months ago, and I talked to them about their offensive line. They took one of the best players, in my opinion, coming out from last year's class. And they weren't that high on Andre Dillard, but they did say he's a good football player. He just hasn't been consistent. I think that is actually a really good option. It's one that makes sense. And we'll obviously see what the Raiders end up doing. The season is still 6 months away, right? So, or maybe not 6, maybe it's like 5 months away. So we have a long time away until week 1 of the regular season. But camp, or at least phase 1 of the offseason has kind of started. And we'll get 2 weeks of this. We'll get some mini camp. We'll get some rookie mini camp, OTAs. And there'll be a break, and then training camp will come around. And I think by the time training camp comes around, this team's going to have added and moved on from like 10 to 15 more players. I truly believe that this Raiders team will look much different in terms of we'll get a better vision of who that right tackle is going to be. And again, that's going to be the biggest thing, right? Juan Cortez said 40 million is tough. Understandable, right? But you got to keep in mind, it's what every team pays a quarterback, right? If you're going to repay your quarterback or pay a quarterback in general, you're looking at paying them like 40 million, right? At least Derek Carr didn't come out and say, well, I'm sure Derek Carr thinks he is the best quarterback in the league. Every player probably looks at themselves as the best player in the league. At least Derek Carr didn't say, hey, I want $50 million. I want to be the highest paid quarterback, right? Because at one point he got that. He became the highest paid quarterback. I know it was only for like a day or two, but at one point Derek Carr was the highest paid quarterback. So at least he still took less money, right? He still only became like the 7th highest paid quarterback or something like that. I think it's a fair deal all around. I see Raider 7528 saying a bad move. At the end of the day, getting a quarterback is a difficult task, right? And you guys know that I've been very critical of Derek Carr, but I think this move actually makes the Raiders better. I think Derek Carr is given all the pieces, he's given all the weapons, and this is the best he's ever going to be. And at the end of the day, like 3 years isn't even that long. Like in 4 years from now, we'll see if we won a Super Bowl. We'll see what type of success we've had. And you make that decision in 4 years when Derek Carr is like 35 years old, and Derek Carr will likely just retire at that point, right? And then you will likely struggle to get another quarterback unless you get lucky, right? So we'll obviously see what happens, but I think at an average value of $35 million for the next 4 years, I think this is a fantastic contract. I really do. Austin Martinez said, "This is it, man. No more excuses. If you want to get paid like the best, you have to play like the best. Let's go, DC." Absolutely, and that's the thing, right? That is the thing. If you want to get paid as the best, um, then that's what it is, right? That's what it is. You have to obviously prove it. Hefe Casey, who's a Kansas City Chiefs fan, said, "I love when everyone says Chiefs are bad. LOL. The Chiefs suck, man. I hate to tell you this, but the Chiefs are the worst team in the division right now, and I'm sure most people would agree with that. The Kansas City Chiefs are terrible, and I get it. Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, but you're gonna find out real quick when you have a 34-year-old tight end that can barely move anymore, and now Patrick Mahomes is trying to feed him. Well, that too. You guys have Juju Smith-Schuster, who I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, it's gonna be a very interesting, very, very interesting year. The nation's own said all the talking heads stay ball washing the Chiefs. Yeah, man, that's the thing, right? Is the Kansas City Chiefs are, and you got to keep in mind, right? Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid are still, top tier player and coach. So you can't write them off, right? One thing I would always say is this, that uh, when you look at a team that has success, you look at a quarterback coach combo that had success. No one wide receiver is the reason why those teams have success, right? There's, Tom Brady, for example, had Randy Moss for I believe like 1 or 2 seasons. And outside of that, they've replaced him with other wide receivers over the course of his 20-year career. Then you look at Aaron Rodgers, right? At one point, Aaron Rodgers had James Jones, he had Jordy Nelson, he had Devontae Adams, but Devontae Adams doesn't make Aaron Rodgers what he is. He was already what he was in the past. I think this is just where we're at, right? If Patrick Mahomes is the guy we think he is, then this is when he has to prove that that's who he is, right? This is going to be the time that they move on to that next stage, and maybe another Tyreek Hill, or maybe a Devontae Adams comes out of nowhere and does helps Patrick Mahomes have success. We'll obviously see what ends up happening. Pharaoh NFL says, "Correct me if I'm wrong. You mentioned that the past Super Bowl quarterbacks were on a rookie deals, easier to build a team. DC contract makes it tough to build." Absolutely. If people don't realize this concept right here, I did the math, right? You look back at the last 14 quarterbacks that played in the last 7 Super Bowls, the average cap hit of those quarterbacks was $13 million. And yes, when you pay Derek Carr $40 million, yes, it's gonna make it tough. It's gonna absolutely make it tough. You look at Devontae, or you look at the Green Bay Packers, the Kansas City Chiefs. They both just lost their best offensive players, or their best offensive playmakers, because they had so much invested in the quarterback. And it's not even just those players. That's just the players that people mentioned. There's still other players as well, right? You look at the Chiefs and the fact that they can't bring back Tyrann Mathieu. Tyrann Mathieu is like 28, 29 years old. He's still in his prime. He's still a really good difference maker on the team. Then you look at the Kansas City Chiefs. They just lost to Darius Smith, a really good pass rusher, right? So when you get rid of these players, it makes it harder. The fact that the last quarterbacks were averaging $13 million in terms of cap hit, it's clear that once a quarterback gets paid, they're not going to have the same impact. Now, I will also say this. You look at a guy like Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson had success while he was on his rookie contract and never made the Super Bowl after that. He's barely won any playoff games after that. Yes, he's carried his team to the playoffs, but he's barely won after that. And that's the biggest part of this entire situation, is if, Derek Carr is going to get paid, then Derek Carr has to have a top 5 offense every single year, right? And that's the thing, right? Is the Raiders have that window of opportunity at the current moment. And what I mean by that is this year specifically, and I've been saying this is the year the Raiders have to win the Super Bowl, because our team next year is going to be worse than the team right now, because Max Crosby's on his final deal of his rookie contract. So Max Crosby's going to get $3 million this year in terms of cap hit. Hunter Renfrow, $1 million in terms of cap hit. Josh Jacobs, $5 million. Darren Waller, $7 million. Even Derek Carr, in terms of cap hit, is getting paid less this year than he will next year. So what that means is this is the best team we will have. Going into next year, there is a high chance that Hunter Renfrow or Darren Waller, one of those guys, is not here next year. There's a really, really, really high chance that happens. There's a high chance that a guy like Trayvon Mullen and Jonathan Abram are not brought back. But again, that's why you have draft picks. That's why you have to go out and strategically go bring some good players in. That's why there's, that's why GMs and coaches get paid the big dollars, right? But I appreciate the super chat, and I appreciate the fact that you paid attention, that I've said that in the past. And I will say this as well, right? When you consider that Derek Carr is making $40 million over the next 3 years, the actual money he's getting per year doesn't matter. Actually, it doesn't matter at all. What actually matters is the cap hits. And the thing is you can always create void years. So you can take the 3-year contract and turn it into a 6-year contract. And the last 3 years, right? The 3 years where he's not on this team, we just incur cap hits for Derek Carr. So you can absolutely do stuff like that. Tom Brady, the Patriots did it for the longest time. And I think they showed you that you can do it. And here's the thing, the Saints kind of do it as well, but the Saints do it with other players, not their quarterback. And I think that is the wrong way to do it. If you're going to push cap into future years, into void years, you only do it with your quarterback. If you start doing it with your tackles, your defensive ends, your tight ends, as the Saints did, you're going to be like $150 million over the cap, and you're going to really struggle. And I think that's where the Saints are right now. And the Raiders have actually done it, right? Like Chandler Jones and Devontae Adams have void years to their contracts. I don't know about Crosby, but I think Crosby may as well. But it's going to be very interesting. Ruben Russ said it's more like a 3-year, $120 million with the 4th year. So really $35 million. And that's the thing, right? Is it's from today, it's 4 years that we have Derek Carr. Average value is $35 million, but average value does not matter. It's about cap hit. So we'll obviously see when the contract comes out what the contract hit will be. John Smith said DC is going to do his thing. Gun Nerd said $40 million is not expensive. $40 million is pretty expensive, man. It's expensive, right? You look at like Justin Herbert and rookies that are coming into the league, and their cap hits are like $4 or $5 million. That's a big difference, man. You look at and the Chargers did a great job, right? Khalil Mack, J.C. Jackson. You're able to do that because you have a rookie contract. The Raiders offered Stephon Gilmore a contract, and Stephon Gilmore did not want what the Raiders offered. And the Raiders could only make an offer for a certain amount of money. That doesn't mean he won't ever sign. Maybe he does sign with the Raiders. But the point is it's going to be very interesting, man, to see what the Raiders end up doing with the rest of the roster. Raider for Life said, "Goats, stay ready for real breaking news." Big shout out to you, man. I really appreciate that. Abram said technically it's actually 35.5 since he was supposed to make 19, and that is actually true. I think it's $139 million over 4 years, which is actually 34.75. So it's actually what Derek Carr will be averaging. So yeah, again, it's gonna be very interesting what the Raiders do. I appreciate all you guys that have been here, man. Patrick said so he's got $40 million a year. I thought he was taking a discount. LOL. That's the thing, man, is I've actually seen this comment a couple of times. $40 million a year, you thought it was a discount. It technically it is, we'll see how the cap hits get drawn up because, and I said this earlier, Derek Carr could have came in and said, I want $50 million. I want to be the highest paid quarterback. Like Derek Carr could have done that. And we couldn't fault him for saying that because at the end of the day, like Aaron Rodgers literally just did that. He became the highest paid quarterback. Deshaun Watson just became the highest paid quarterback. Patrick Mahomes 2 seasons ago signed and became the highest paid quarterback. So there's no reason why Derek Carr couldn't have done the same thing. Now, obviously, Derek Carr also wanted a better team, and for that, he took $40 million per year. Technically, that is a discount, right? I think that's makes him the 7th highest paid quarterback. So I don't know. We'll obviously find out. Rexy said, so you're saying we shouldn't have paid Carr. I'm not necessarily saying we shouldn't have. I think extending Derek Carr is the correct thing to do. But the Raiders do have to understand that there's 2 decisions. You can pay a quarterback, and then he's expected to carry the team, or you cannot pay a quarterback, go with a cheaper quarterback, and then have the team help kind of build around the quarterback. So there's 2 ways to kind of do it, right? It's why the salary cap has made it so difficult for teams to have continued success. Like what Bill Belichick and Tom Brady did, we're not going to see that for a really long time. Patrick Mahomes, some people thought that Russell Wilson would be that next Tom Brady type of quarterback. He went to the Super Bowl twice in his first 5 years, and after that, he never went back to a Super Bowl. Joe Burrow just went to a Super Bowl. Chances are he won't go to another Super Bowl unless it's on his rookie contract in the next 2 or 3 years. He may not go to a Super Bowl again for a long time. Cam Newton, when he was young, he went to a Super Bowl, never went to a Super Bowl again. Right. So my point is there's, it correlates. There's a reason why quarterbacks generally go to Super Bowls when they're either younger or they're making less money, right? Matthew Stafford's cap hit this past season was $24 million. Think about that. He wasn't getting 45. He wasn't getting 50. He was getting paid 24, 25 million. So cap hits definitely are going to be a big part of that, right? It's gonna be interesting how much cap space we actually have left, right? I think that's gonna be the big thing. Plus, if you look at Derek Carr's current contract, right, one of the things I think people have to remember is when next offseason comes around, we'll have 4 quarterbacks get paid 50, 52, 55 million dollars per year. That's going to make Derek Carr like the 10th highest paid quarterback, and his contract would have just kicked in at that point. And then the year after that, another 4 or 5 quarterbacks get paid, right? In 2 or 3 years, Derek Carr is $40 million. We're going to say, wow, Derek Carr is getting only $40 million, right? I know it's a lot of money today, but at one point, it will not be a ton of money. So it'll be very interesting, obviously, to see what ends up happening. Silver Wednesday's Carr could have got 45. And that's the thing, right? Derek Carr could have absolutely gotten paid $45 million. He could have absolutely said, this is my number and I won't go below it. And what are the Raiders going to do, right? Franchise tag Derek Carr. At that point, you're really losing leverage. You're really, really, really putting yourself in a bad position when you franchise tag someone. Patrick Galindo, who was a member to the channel, said, I just, if he got between 30 to 35 million would have been good. And that's the thing, right? Is I agree with that. If Derek Carr took a $30 million cap hit, or $30 million per year on the average value, that would have been fantastic. I totally agree with that, but that's not realistic, right? Plus, we're going into an era where the salary cap is going up. Right now we're, or at least today, we're saying that Derek Carr getting paid $19.5 million is super team friendly, which it is. In 2 years, we'll be saying Derek Carr's getting 34 million in terms of cap hit. Remember, the $19.5 million, that's the cap hit. That's not the average value of his last contract. The average value of his last contract, I think, was like 24 or 25 million. 19.5 is the cap hit. So, in 2 years, when we look at his contract and we see what his cap hit is, his cap hit may be $32 million, right? We don't know, right? So that's what's going to matter. Remember, in contracts, there's cap hits and there's the average value. The average value is super irrelevant. It does not matter. It's only cap hit. So once we find those cap hits out, that's what we'll be talking about. Ruben Russ said, would it be bad if we front loaded the contract and save the future? Absolutely not. If there's some way that the Raiders could raise Derek Carr's contract this season, I'd be all in for it. In fact, post June 1st, the Raiders are going to we're going to get 21 or 26 million, so something around that. I would not mind paying Derek Carr 15 million extra dollars this year, right? Raise from the $19 million we're already paying him this year, raise that up to 35, right? Give him 15 or 16 extra million dollars, because that means just 15 or 16 million that we have to pay him less in the future. Now, I doubt the Raiders are going to do that. I truly doubt that that's going to happen, but I think that would be super smart. It would be super, it's something that teams wouldn't do, but I'm all for it. Some people are talking about the fact that Kirk Cousins got paid more than Derek, right? I believe he made about the same, or I think he's actually getting 45 million per year. And so someone can probably fix that for me if that's not correct. But Kirk Cousins is not as good as Derek Carr, and Kirk Cousins is getting paid roughly just as much. So I always keep that in mind. When you say Derek Carr is getting paid a ton of money, I always keep in mind that there's Kirk Cousins out there somewhere getting more money than DC. So I appreciate the super chat, Ruben. I really do. Silver Wind said Carr led the league in deep passes last year. I don't know about that statistic specifically. Was that like deep passes completed, deep passing yards, deep passing touchdown to interceptions? But I do appreciate that. Clifford Jordan said, dude, what makes you think they're going to be so bad next year and it's so important to have to win now? What are you guys just have shows just to hear yourself talk? Well, first and foremost, I mean, if you look at the contracts that the Raiders have on rookie contracts this year, and you compare that to who they have to bring back, I mean, this doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that we're not going to be able to bring all those guys back. Like it's impossible to sign every single guy that's on a rookie contract this year that's going to have an impact. You think we're going to be able to pay Josh Jacobs $14 million next year and Hunter Renfrow 16 and Darren Waller 17? It's not going to happen. Like, just take a look at what it is. Andre James is going to get paid in 2 seasons as well. His contract ends at the end of I think his contract ends at the end of this year. So he's going to get paid as well. And Andre James is only getting like $4 million. Andre James is going to want more, especially if he proves himself to be a good center. The Raiders are not going to be the same team they are next year that they will be this year because they have so many young, cheap contracts. Again, I don't know why it's hard for some people to understand that, but yeah, I'm not sure. But I appreciate all you guys, man, that are tuned in here. Over 620 of you guys are tuned in. I'm excited, man. I'm really, really excited to see what the Raiders will end up doing this year, especially when you look at the current roster, you look at what we've kind of brought in, the fact that players are actually buying in. And I think that's like the biggest thing. Players are actually buying into this scheme and system. 98% of people were in the building on Monday. Obviously, I don't know what the statistics are the rest of the week, but 98% were at least there on Monday, which means that this team, people are actually buying into the system. And I think that is what the Raiders need. They need guys that are buying in. We need guys who are going to show up and say, Patrick Graham, teach me the ways, teach me what this defense is going to do. We need guys like Jonathan Abram to step up this year. We need guys like Trayvon Mullen to be healthy this year. We need those guys that we invested high draft picks to take the next step. I still have a little bit of hope for Clelin Ferrell that he can turn his career around. I know some people are going to say it's absolutely impossible for Ferrell to turn his career around, but there's still hope, man. It took Rashawn Gary until his 3rd year for him to have an impact. And I know will be the 4th year for Clelin Ferrell, but it is possible, and hopefully that, I personally think they should move him to that 3-tech defensive tackle spot, which would also allow him to be like a defensive end in the 3-4, right? You play that 4 or 5 tech. It's gonna be very interesting, man. I appreciate all of you guys that have tuned in. Over 600 of you guys tuned in to watch this show at 8:00 in the morning. Actually, it was like 7:45 when we went live, but big shout out to all you guys, man. If you guys aren't members, make sure to become a member. Thumbs up, subscribe. It really helps the channel. And I'll see you guys next time with another video.